All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning again to the Mac Outdoors podcast again. Today, I am happy to have Rachelle on the show, and we're going to be learning a little bit about some women's outdoor gear. And hopefully, as we learn, we can answer your questions and some that I've seen in the past. So, Rachelle, would you please introduce yourself and let my listeners know who you are and what you do?
My name is Rachelle Hedrick. I am an outdoor enthusiast. I live in Cabins, West Virginia, in the Appalachian Range of West Virginia, and I have worked for DSG Outerwear for the last 7 years in the hunt line.
I'm super excited to visit with you because I knew about DSG, but when I saw you showed up, I kind of did a little research on you as well. So I want to learn about the gear, but I also want to learn more about you because I haven't yet met you, and I'm excited to learn more about you. But thinking of DSG, I kind of wanted to go back to the history of the gear, but also where you guys are going to be going. And when I first found DSG gear, it was snowmobile gear. And so, can you kind of give us a kind of a rundown of where it came from and where it's going?
Yeah, so Wendy Gavinsky is the owner and founder of DSG Outerwear, and I know that she started because she was just in so much frustration not finding snowmobile gear for women that fit women, that was feminine looking, and so she started her own line, and I think maybe like 7 years, 8 years into that. Um, she got a call from Wisconsin DNR, and that was like when the Blaze Pink was first being legalized in several states. And they had asked her, like, hey, have you ever thought about doing hunting gear? And she said, actually, yeah, I have thought long and hard about it. And so that's kind of how the hunt line came along. And at that time, we really did not have many options for women's gear. Um, I know me personally, I've worn a lot of men's mediums, and the awful thing about not just wearing men's, but men's doesn't come in smaller sizes. So if you're a smaller woman, you have to start at the medium. So you not only have men's gear on, doesn't fit right, but you're like swimming in it. So it was a lot of hand-me-downs and men's gear in the beginning of my hunting career, and I'm grateful for people who are bold like Wendy to go out and start something like this because it was truly needed. And now, many years into it, we do have several options for women's gear, but the DSG line has really grown, not just with hunting gear, but fishing gear, heated gear, and then the snow line as well. So casual wear, lifestyle wear, it's just really exploded. You can pretty much find anything on that website.
Well, that is super cool. With the snowmobile gear, something that I kind of wanted to go there since that's where it started out, and we're headed into winter. And so, it's something that you're still producing? I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah. She still has a great line of snow gear. That's not really my department. We have team leaders for like the snow line, the fish line, the heat line, and the hunt line, and I'm more of the hunt line. But the snowmobile gear is fully in full swing still. So that's what started the company. And actually, when she first started the company, it was just snow gear, and it was called Divas Sports Gear, I think is what it was. And when she started the hunt line, I said, I love what this is. I want to be a part of this, but I just really feel like your name it does not like go well with the hunting industry with the whole divas thing. And so DSG was already embroidered on everything. So Wendy came up with doing something great. And so I said, this is amazing. This is hunting, fishing, camping, conservation, anything outdoors. We're doing something great. And so that's how doing something great became alive. And it's DSG Outerwear, and that's what DSG stands for. So we moved forward in 2017 with doing something great.
Right. And I think that doing something great is a great acronym, especially because I know some people kind of frown on divas or babes or, like
Yeah.
the gender specific type of names. So,
Right. And it
um,
was okay for the snow line. The hunting side of things, the hunting industry is really doesn't really care for those types of words. So
right.
it was better to just change it, and now it that the doing something great covers pretty much everything of the outdoor life.
Yeah. And when we're looking at outdoor life, with just hunting, you said that a lot of gear has been added on. It's just everyday lifestyle gear that's been added, or what kind of things are additions?
The snow line was so great. The hunt line was so great that people were always coming, hey, can you make backpacks? Can you make this? Can you make hand muffs? Can you make fishing line? Can you make heated gear? And it just kept evolving. And I mean, like the possibilities would be endless at this point. The men keep begging us to make men's gear, and that's not going to happen because we are strictly women's exclusive. So, but yeah, no, like I mean, just the lines that have evolved over the years and like even our ice fishing. So I think one of the stores, one of our retailers asked Wendy, can you make an ice line? Like we have the open water fishing, but we added the ice fishing as well. So we have two lines of the fish line. And that was actually requested because it was something these retailers were not seeing and they needed it and they had women asking for it. And so that's how the ice line was born. And so like the technical side of everything, like Wendy already had that under her belt because snow gear is so technical. It's got to be waterproof, windproof. You've got to get the zippers right and nothing can leak. So um when she moved to hunting, like, it had to be windproof and waterproof and silent and you don't want your scent leaking through. And so it was very, very technical. And then the ice fishing had to be very technical. So I think that's one advantage that we have over the other companies is that because she's been in this business so long with the technicality of everything, it's something that's very beneficial to the brand.
Yeah, and with the technicality, it's something that I always look for in gear. I mean, a lot of people, we used to joke, decades ago, like pink it and shrink it. And as you said, like a men's small is not going to fit somebody who is 5'2" and weighs 120 pounds. Like it just doesn't fit. So,
Right. And
and
there,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say to fit our curves is something else as well. And when we're looking at the technical aspects of the gear, how do you guys develop or advance or further any type of innovation in the gear?
So as far as sizing, we have they buy very expensive mannequins that go from the extra extra small to the 5X. Now we didn't have extra extra small to begin with. I noticed just from the hunt line that littler girls like 12, 14, 15-year-old girls were wanting to go out and hunt with their moms. And even the littler kids like 2, 3, we do get asked, can you make toddler sizes? But when you're making gear in those sizes, you have to make like 5,000 pieces, and there's just not enough demand for that. But as far as like the 12 to 14 range, like women's size 0, the extra, extra small, we were able to do, and we were selling a ton of it. I don't know if you're familiar with Hannah Barron. She's one of the girls we sponsored. She's so tiny and she wears our extra extra small. There's no other company in the entire industry that makes that size for her. And not only do we make an extra extra small, but if you're shorter or more petite, we have an adjustable inseam. So the bottom hem folds up under and then it snaps. So it goes from 32 and a half to 30 and a half to 28 and a half. So you can actually adjust the inseam. And then the waist is adjustable as well. You can tighten it or loosen it. And a lot of our bibs, like hoods are removable. We have drop seats on everything. It's so like going up to 5X, we make sure we don't just make it wider, wider, wider. We make sure that it fits around the waist and women are all built differently. So we get a lot of feedback and we take that feedback and we make it better. That's why you see like 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 on our website, because each year we're taking all this feedback and we're listening to what people are saying, and we're putting that back into our gear to make it better, each piece better and better year after year. So it's always something to look forward to. And you see like a 3.0 or 4.0, or like, oh my gosh, what did they add? Or what did they do different? Or, and how is the sizing different? Or does it have fleece now instead of insulation, or both, or whatever? And it's just really exciting. We try to have new gear each and every year.
Yeah, and to me, I think it's something that's super great because, like I said, like I'm short, and then I have like my friend Carrie. She is a host of a podcast as well, but she is like 6 feet tall. And when we hunt together, we laugh because she's looking for something that's long. I'm looking for something that's shorter, and so this ability to adjust a hem on the fly is something that we always love. The both of us do. And when we're looking at like sleeve length, is there anything considerations for that for a taller
Yeah.
person?
So luckily for me, because I'm tall with long limbs, so is Wendy, the owner. She's very tall. She wears a size 10 shoe and she has long arms like me. And so everything I get is like you can see is like, you know, it's long enough that like normally my stuff comes to here and I'm like pulling it down, pulling it down. But when I put on DSG, just everything fits so perfectly. But if you have shorter arms, then you just pull it up to where you need it, and then it has the Velcro where you can tighten the arm to leave that adjustment cuff, or adjust the cuff to where you need it. So the adjustable inseams, the adjustable cuffs, pretty much everything is adjustable. We have like adjustable waists. Even in the jackets, you can pull them tighter. Some girls like them tighter, some girls don't. And then we have a set called the Brianna, and it's
Hmm.
very, very, very stretchy. So with that, I always get a small, but then like as it's like 15, 20 degrees and I'm have like 4 layers underneath, that set in itself just stretches and forms to how many layers you have on, because it is just so soft and it's silent. And that is my favorite set, the Brianna, that I wear the whole season. So I will wear that from like 40 degrees with no base layers all the way to like 15 degrees with like 3 base layers under it, my heated vest, my heated socks, because we make heated gear as well, and heated gloves. And it works for me as a bow hunter. But that set, it just stretches with you. So I know a lot of girls are like, oh, I'm kind of like a medium. I'm in between a small and a medium. With that set, like you could go for a small and it would still stretch to a medium. It's like, I don't know. It just works. It's just like the perfect fabric. So, and it's really warm and it's fleece inside. I wear it casually and I wear it in the woods. So a lot of our gear is so versatile that you can wear it casually and wear it in the woods as well. So I don't know. You get double use out of it, and it's totally worth it.
Yeah, it's a Debriana. Is it kind of like a mid-season and then you layer underneath
It,
it, or what type of season
yes.
are we looking at?
It's a mid-season. It's completely fleece lined. So we all were on a duck hunt this weekend and we were testing out our new waterfowl line. And so Wendy was with us, and on the way there, I wore my Brianna on the plane. And on the way home, I wore my Brianna on the plane because it's so warm. It's cozy. It's like a big fluffy hoodie. But at the same time, like I can run through briars and it won't snag. I wear it bear hunting. I wear it deer hunting. I wear it anytime it's 40 degrees or colder. I have the Brianna on. So I think it's like a fan favorite, like because I manage our sponsorships as well, and it's everyone's favorite. So
Everybody loves
I've
that.
everyone has that. I even have it. We make it in black as well. And so it's basically for blind hunting. So if you're in a blind, you want to wear all black. So we have the top and bottom, the drop seat bib in the black as well. But I wear that casually. I wear the camo and the black ones casually all the time. So I don't know. It's just the comfiest piece that we have.
Yeah, and I was just say that's kind of a testimony to the design itself if you're comfortable enough to wear it when you're traveling through an airport. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
and I guess you wouldn't have to worry about people wondering why you're wearing camo and when you're in the
Right.
airport or something like that.
Yeah. They're like, that girl just came back from hunting, or that girl's going to a hunt. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And so you mentioned the heat gear. How long have you guys
Mhm.
had that out?
I think this will be the third year that we've have heated gear. So the socks are absolutely amazing. I don't hunt without the socks, even if I don't turn them on. Like I would rather have them on and not need them than not wear them and need them. So if it's like 40 or below, I usually have my socks with me. They're either in my bag or on my feet. If you set all day, which sometimes I set all day, really you just want to have them on in the mornings and the evenings. That's when it's coldest. So sometimes I'll keep an extra set of batteries and then I'll just swap them out for the evening and let them run, but they get so warm that I keep mine on 50%, which actually is great because the battery lasts longer on 50%, but they do get very, very, very warm. So if your fingers and toes are like the first thing to get cold, the heated socks are absolute must have. The vest is heated as well. My core doesn't really get very, very cold, but just having that sense of like, okay, I can always turn this on if I need it. It's just a nice extra layer to have if the wind does start blowing or you get a chill and you're just like, oh, once you get that chill, you're done. And so it's nice to just click a button right on your chest and you can just feel just like you're in this hot shower all of a sudden. You're just like, you're back to warm again. And we have heated gloves, which being a bow hunter, I don't wear the gloves personally. If I'm gun hunting and I'm sitting in a blind, I will wear the gloves as well. It's just so nice to have just a touch of a button and just give you that extra warmth. So I always say like stay warmer, stay out longer. That's kind of like our slogan with that. So once you're cold, you're done. It's hard to draw your bow. It's hard to shoot a gun. It's hard to move your fingers when you're cold. It's like, why am I even sitting here? So it's always nice to have heated gear as well. And that was like, I was so excited when we brought that line on. I was like, yes, yes, yes. So I feel like complete now. Like we have literally everything. We have insulated boots that are lace up. We have rubber boots, head to toe. Like every season, if you get on other websites that have women's gear, think there's only like maybe one or two in the industry that's like made by women for women. So that's a really heavy slogan for us because it's women owned, women design, women tested, women's exclusive gear. A lot of the other brands are the afterthought, like, oh, let's just make a women's line and see how it does. And they do like one jacket and two pairs of pants and maybe a base layer. With DSG, there are so many pieces. Like when I go on a hunt, I'm like, oh, I want to take this vest, and I want to take this reversible puffer, and I want to take this Brianna, but what if I need the Kylie? And what if I need, like
Mhm.
it's really hard not to take it all. And before you know it, your big roller bag is just jam-packed full and you really don't need it all, but there's so many options. Even with our accessories, there's so many options. And so I feel like we have a huge advantage over the other companies just because of our selection alone. Like for turkey season, there's we have foraging leggings with light long sleeve shirts, short sleeve shirts, and then we have the Beck sleeve, which is very light. So you've got two options right there. We also have field pants, and then we go up to a soft shell, and then we have two fleece lined. We have the Ella and the Brianna, which I keep talking about the Brianna. The Ella is fleece lined as well. It's just a jacket and a pant compared to the Brianna, which is a pullover and a bib. And then we have the Kylie, which is our thickest, heaviest piece, waterproof, windproof. It's a 3-in-1 jacket. It's very, very warm, insulated, has a liner, really cute liner that you can zip out and wear casually if you want. And so like there's just so many pieces, vests, reversible jackets, like things like that. And then our whole casual line to go with that as well. So we have upland gear. We have everything. I can go on, but it's just better to get on dsgouterwear.com and check it out. Just,
Right. And so for
yeah.
the listeners, we'll actually have some video and pictures if you're over when you're not driving. Go to YouTube and you can see kind of what we're looking at, what we're talking about. And before we started, I told Rachelle we kind of rescheduled before this, but I was thankful that we rescheduled because I was invited to the Governor's Ringneck Classic in Kansas. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to cancel like last minute. And I looked and you had rescheduled and I was like, yay. Which is terrible, but I was. But
That's,
I put on my chair today because I just washed this bloody vest. But
yeah.
it's my DSG vest that I've had for a
Yeah.
while.
Nice.
But I'm headed out tomorrow to go to a quail hunt with New Mexico Game and Fish in down in New Mexico, and so it'll be going again. So I had to get it cleaned up, get the feathers out of it.
Ah,
But I'm super stoked because you mentioned waterfowl gear and it's waterfowl season. And of
yeah.
course, like heater gear, I'm thinking of sitting in the blind, freezing my fingers and toes off and stuff like that. And at least in like we have an Alps blind that pops open. We can put a little box heater in there, but in the layout blinds, it gets cold. And so I was excited when you said heater gear because I like heater gear and I wanted to kind of back up to that a little bit. The vest, does it have a battery pack or coils or what? How is it heated? Like through, is it heated
So
throughout or just in core sections?
it's heated in the front of the chest and it's heated on the back of the shoulders. So it has a little button here on the chest, and you can do like low, medium, or high. And that battery is a little bit bigger. It just goes right into the pocket. And then the battery, actually, you can plug your phone into it if your phone is going dead. So you can charge your phone while you've got your heated vest on. But I always like to keep like extra ones, because if I am charging my phone, of course it's going to go dead. But like I said, the socks, I keep them on medium just because they get so warm. And then my battery lasts like 5, 6 hours. So they'll last a long time. But if you're out all day, it's always good to have, like a backup
Couple
pair. So,
spares. And so
yeah.
the socks, I'm remembering back to like old days of original heat, like insoles and stuff like that. With the socks, is it is as simple as the vest where I'm pushing a button on my chest? Or can you push the sock, or how are you turning those off and on?
So the sock comes up your calf, and if you're wearing rubber boots, it sticks out just above the rubber boot. So it's just below your knee, but high on your calf. And then all of our pants kind of zip up the leg, so you can just unzip it and hit that button, and it has the low, medium, high as well. Yeah, it's really
Okay.
accessible. It's super easy. I do it all the time in the stand.
Yeah, because that's the worst when it's like you've got this heated insole or something and your feet are too hot and you're like, the remote's not working. I don't know if it's on or off. Like you'd have no idea. So I love the simplicity of it. And I think it would make life so much better. I'm going to have to get me a set before I head out to this blind because right now, like hiking in the field, it's like the cold is not as much of an issue right now. But we're having a heat wave. I don't know about where you live, but
Everyone.
here
Yeah,
I
everyone.
shouldn't
It
say
feels
heat
like
wave because it's
October.
30 degrees.
Yeah, it's 60 here. I mean, it's normally like, 30, 40 this
Hmm.
time of year. See here today. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so that's a heat wave.
oh yeah. And I hunted Kansas a few weeks ago, and I was literally, my husband and I were laughing. Our friend just called us a couple days ago. He came back from Kansas. He said, I was down in my boxers. And I said, that's so funny because I was down in my sports bra and my husband was down in his boxers. Like it was 90 when we were out there. It was so hot and you're just
Oh,
sweating your blinds. I'm like, this is so unusual for this time of year. Yeah, it's just really warm everywhere, which really doesn't help with sales because you're trying to sell heated gear and all this insulated gear, and everybody's so hot and warm. So it's not the best for sales. It's really not the best for deer running around. We like it to be cold, but yeah, it is definitely unusually warm for this time of year.
right. But we know it's coming. It always comes.
Yeah, it'll hit us hard now that we've been like, oh, this is nice and warm. Next week it'll snow.
Yeah. And so you're a hunter. How long have you been hunting?
I've been hunting 17 years. Hmm.
For quite
Yeah,
a
I
while.
my dad was an avid outdoorsman. He passed away when I was 7. So, my mom kind of like sold all of his guns and didn't think that us kids would get into anything like that. I mean, we skied and we were very athletic into sports. But I didn't really hunt until I met my husband in '07. And he put a fly rod in one hand and a bow in the other. And it just was in my blood the whole time. I've always been very tomboyish. And I love the outdoors. I played outdoors all day long, always outside. I had just never hunted or fished, in that way. And so he's an outfitter. We raise trout. And so his family actually owns a caverns in West Virginia. It's called Smoke Hole Caverns. The whole area we live in is called Smoke Hole because the settlers used to go in the caverns and smoke meat, and the smoke would billow out, and they call it smoke hole. So we're known for trout fishing, and DNR stocks our river. So we have log cabins and cottages and RV sites along the riverside. And then we raise trout. We have a trout pond. We do fly lessons, and it's like a whole resort kind of thing, a 26,000 square foot gift shop, a little mini golf and things like that. So, um, yeah, when I met him, like our first date was fly fishing. And so I kind of caught on to that. It's so funny when I say, like, I don't really even know how to use a spin rod. I'm just mastered fly fishing. That's all I do is fly fish. And then bow hunting, I've just been bow hunting forever. It feels like it's just like second nature to me. So I do gun hunt a little bit if the opportunity arises, but I'm normally bow hunting.
Yeah. So when I have so many questions, I always do this. I'm like, oh. And I'm laughing because my husband, when we met, I knew how to spin fish. I knew how to bait cast. It's stuff like that. But I wanted to learn to fly fish, and he was just kind of like he was a fly fishing guide, and he would
Yeah.
just kind of rolled his eyes because you know how they always say like husbands and boyfriends or whatever can't teach their girlfriends or wives. And so it took about a year for me to finally get convince him like I really want to learn how to fly fish. And now it's like you can't get the fly rod out of my hand.
Right. I mean, it's easy, but it's hard and it's technical. But once you learn how to do it, it just, I think I prefer that. I may definitely prefer that over just like a spin cast. There's so much more beauty and technique to it, I think.
Definitely. And I think it's kind of zen to just cast the rod and to try to place a
Yeah.
fly, and it's kind of like hunting. And a lot of people, just this week at the Ringneck Classic, I was sitting next to a guy, and he was the DJ at the event, and he said he didn't hunt, he only fishes. And I was like, well, that's like hunting. And he said, what? And I was like, yeah, you have to hunt for the fish. And I don't know if he fly fished or not, we didn't get that far. But for the listeners, can you kind of explain, like, with your guys's location there, how are you guys managing and conserving fish?
So we have a spring creek that comes out like into our property, and that's where we raise our brood stock. So those are like our larger trout. It's catch and release only, and we guide it. We don't let anyone fish in there by ourselves because it takes, 8, 10 years to grow these fish as large as like 12 pounds. So we have rainbow, and then we have golden rainbow, which originated here in our town back in the 60s. So people travel from all over just to catch a golden rainbow. And then we have brook, brown, and some tiger as well. And so it, it really is, people say, oh, I'm going to come up there and fish with y'all. Like, what do I need? What do I need? And we're like, we'll take care of you when you get here. Cause like, really, you got to match the hatch. You have to know what flies to use, what time of year, how to read the water and things like that. And we do a lot of lessons. And we love teaching kids because it just seems like all kids are naturals with that. I don't know. They don't have any bad habits to break, and they listen, and it's so fun teaching kids to, and you're just standing back like, wow, they caught on like the first 5 minutes. And then the adults are like 3 hours in and they don't know what they're doing. But we have women's retreats here. And so we'll get like 8 women all together for 2 days, and we'll do the lessons with them. And I feed them 3 meals a day, and we'll take them on a float on the river, or we'll wade the river. We fish on the spring creek, we fish in the pond. I'll take them up on the mountain. We'll have a big fire up on the mountain with the overlook. I let them go through the caverns. It's just kind of like touristy and learning fly fishing all at the same time. But I usually just do all women, and it's such a blast. Oh my gosh. I like to do 2 classes a year, and it's really fun to get a bunch of women together that are like-minded and all different ages and just coming from all over and meeting new people, and it's a good time.
Yeah, it sounds like a good time. It's a totally good time. Do you have any coming up, or what time of year do you usually do that?
Yeah, I usually do the end of May before before Memorial Day, we usually do a class. And then sometimes if I do a second class or if I have a lot of people asking, I'll do like the first week of June because they actually, the DNR will stock. We live on the North Fork of the South Branch of the Potomac, and they'll stock clear up to the end of May. So fishing is still really good into June. If we have water. So we had a big drought. We've actually been kind of droughted the last 3 years, but this past summer was our worst. And we lost all of our fish in our pond and our raceway. Our stream was good, but everything in our catch and keep pond died because of the water got too warm, and then we lost oxygen. And then Josh and I were in Arizona for 2 weeks because I drew a mule deer tag after 14 years, and the power went out. And we were not here, and nobody knew, and we lost everything in our raceway. So if you haven't lost 3 million fish, you're not a real fish farmer. It takes a lot of hard work and starting from scratch a lot. So, yeah, this happens. It happens a lot. It happens, through the years, and we just start over. Everything in our Spring Creek is always good, though. That's our catch and release area. That's where we do our fly lessons. So everything is still there. So our big broods, they're good. They're good. It's just the pond is hard to keep cold,
Mhm.
with the oxygen and everything like that when it's droughted. So the weather does play a big part in what we do. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's something that I haven't talked about on the show yet is about raising fish. And I've shared fish stocking events and stuff like that. But it's kind of interesting to hear you talk about possibly losing your whole tank of fish or
Mhm.
your whole pond of fish. That would be
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, it was
What
terrible.
kind of tips do you have for people when talking about dealing with trout?
Trout are very wimpy fish. Like when you're bass fishing, you grab them by the lip and you're holding them up. With a trout, they can't be out of the water very long. You have to actually baby them when you put them back in. You have to be very gentle. You can't put your fingers in their gills. If they bleed even a little bit, they're most likely going to die. You have to be very, very good about just hooking them on the lip. If they swallow it, just cut the line. Don't even try to take it out because it's going to be a dead fish. So like when you put them back in, and like our broods, you're gonna have to fight them a while. You're not gonna hook one and just reel it in. You're gonna hook one and it's gonna be 3 to 5 minutes fighting that thing. You got to let it get tired or else it'll snap your line. You have to have the thin line because they will see it. So you've got this giant fish on a very thin line. You can't be horsing it in. You got to do it slowly and let them get tired. Then when they finally give up, then you can like slowly reel them towards the bank, net them, take your picture, and then let them back in. But they're so tired at that point that they will roll. Once they're on their belly, they're like, "Oh, no, what do I do?" So once they're on your belly, you just flip them over, and it's like they get their life back and their brain works again, and they're like, "Oh," and then they'll swim off. But sometimes you just got to let them lay there and rest as well. So it just depends on how long the fight was, how long you had them out of the water. You really got to baby them. They're a very wimpy fish.
And that's an interesting word, wimpy, but that's something
Uh,
that I try to encourage listeners to understand that they're a delicate fish, and we we don't horse them in. And I'm just thinking right now as you're telling that story, I recently shared a video of my husband reeling in a pike, and I clipped sections and like did it 9 times speed, like super fast, sped it up because people's attention spans are so short. And so for the listeners, if you don't have patience, you're not going to land a big one. These big ones, that's part of the joy, and especially on a fly rod, is pulling them in and letting them run and listening to your guide when they tell you to let them run, because these big fish you can't just horse them in. You're not, it's just not going to happen. And so have patience when you're fly fishing if you want to catch a big fish.
That's why we guided as well. Like people were like, "Well, I know what I'm doing. I don't need a guide." And I'm like, "I don't care. You're not fishing in our private Spring Creek without us because they will stick their fingers in their gills or they'll go, ripping on the fly, pulling it out, and then you got dead fish everywhere, and that's just not going to happen when you pour everything you have into this to grow them for so many years." So Yeah, it doesn't matter how experienced someone is, we're always there with them. So makes us
Yeah.
feel better. Yeah.
Help them out along the way. Well, I love that. I think it's great. I might have to try to add that to our destinations
Yeah,
list. And so
sure.
you
Come on.
mentioned that you drew an Arizona tag. Tell us about the Arizona hunt.
Oh,
Did you tag one? Did you have an adventure? How did it go?
so it took me 14 years to draw this tag, and it was a mule deer in the kaibab. And I had an excellent guide, but they don't allow cameras in Arizona anymore. And this was like the first or second year that they didn't allow cameras. So
No game cameras.
right.
Yeah.
So it was very, very, very difficult to tell what was in that area. So we sat in blinds over salt licks and water holes. Well, it had rained the whole time. So they didn't need to come to water, and they don't come to salt when it's wet. They only eat it when it's dry. So we did glass some up, but there was a burn in that area. So it was there wasn't a lot of cover. So these mule deer are like 200, 250 yards out, and you have absolutely no way to do a spot and stalk on them because it's just wide open terrain. So yeah, that was a hard one to swallow. Just bringing that tag home, knowing, I mean, my 7 day hunt turned into a 10.5 day hunt, but I, we had the best time. My husband was there with me. We spike camped. I forgot how much I loved to spike camp. We were right on the edge of the Grand Canyon, so we got to see really cool formations, and just driving through Utah to even get to Arizona was just like, what? This is crazy. I'm like, the earth is definitely completely underwater at one point. Like your mind is just like thinking of all this stuff. Like, yes, I believe in Noah's Ark and all this stuff. But like to see it like that, it's just crazy. It's like we're not in West Virginia anymore. It was wild. It was the best hunt. Then I come home from there and I left for Saskatchewan for a moose hunt. And I went with a friend. It was on the res, and he asked me if I wanted to come up, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, definitely want to get like a Yukon moose would be my dream hunt, but like who has like $40,000 in their back pocket right now?
We won't be
So I'm like,
choosy about this.
go to Canada and kill a free moose, sure. And it was the very first morning. This moose was huge. It was like 50 inches, and it was very big for that area. And I was like, I cannot believe this is happening. And I'm gonna have moose meat. Like all I wanted was moose meat. I had it one time and it was amazing. And that's all I could. When I kill a moose, I'm gonna give you some meat. Now I'm gonna give you some meat. Like I'm already giving all my meat away before I even killed this animal. I was just so excited to have moose meat in my freezer. And the very first morning we found this big moose, and he said 200 yards, that thing's dead with a gun. And I'm like, Lance, I didn't fly all the way up here with my bow just to shoot it with a gun. I'm like, let's spot and stalk this thing. So we get about 50 yards away, and he's like, 50 yards, this thing's dead with a gun. And I'm like, come on, we're this close. Let's get closer. And I could have shot it at 50 yards, but I'm pulling 55 pounds. And this is probably the biggest animal I've ever drawn back on. So I wanted to get as close as I could. The wind was just ripping in the perfect direction. So it covered a lot of our sound, and it covered a lot of our scent. And so I got about 25 yards, and my guide stepped on a stick behind me, and he looked at me. The moose looked at me, and we're like face to face at 25 yards. And he like went to go around to circle me. So I busted left, and I knocked an arrow, and I just went running through all this brush. And then I was sneaking up, and I looked up, and there I was like 10 yards face to face with this bull. And I'm like, oh, and I kind of like started to go down. I'm like, what are you doing? Are you trying to hide? He already sees you.
You're like,
Like,
I'm invisible.
yeah, I'm like, you don't see me, you don't see me, you don't see me, you don't see me. And so like he turned to walk away, and I just bolted. I took off running, and he turned back again to look at me, and I just drew. And I held until he made a move to walk away. And then he quartered. And I was like, should I shoot him quartered? I'm like, I don't know. He's so big. I don't know. Like, and then he went full broadside, and I let that arrow fly. And I heard it hit like, doom. And the moose went, boom, like that. And I was like, yeah. It's like, oh my God, I cannot believe this just happened first morning, 17 yards. Like, this is a dream come true. And there was no blood, no arrow. So we backed out, got some help, and took forever to even find any blood. Well, there's a lot of canola fields up there, and they had just been cut. So it's just like little sticks, maybe like 8 inches high through these dirt fields. So there was this blood trail. And long story short, we followed this blood trail for 1.75 miles. And before I found my arrow, and it was a full arrow, the broadhead wasn't broken, nothing was broken. And just like, what in the world? Like, I know I hit him good. Like, I held where I should. It was just, if I had to replay it in my head over again or do the whole thing over again, I wouldn't have changed anything. I would have done exactly what I did. So, the last quarter mile, we could just see his, um, his footprints through the canola fields. There was no blood. He never bedded down. I know he wasn't hurt that bad because then he jumped a fence to go into this
Mhm.
cattle field. And once his tracks went in with the cattle tracks, it was like, okay, this is over. So I lost that. But my good friend Melissa Bachman, she hunts moose all the time. I called her and I'm like, I know you're on a hunt, but I just shot this moose and I don't know what I did wrong. And she said, well, their ribs are so huge and their ribs go like 3/4 of the way back from their body and their vitals are so high, like, or their bodies are so high. You actually have to actually aim lower to get to their vitals between their ribs. And what they think is that I hit a rib and my arrow deflected and went like this. Because if my arrow was sticking straight out the whole time, it would have broke off completely. I think that it just deflected, but it went in at least 10, 12 inches. So that's where the blood was up to the arrow. But yeah, I came home with no moose and they still gave me some meat to bring home. So that was nice of them because it was really my goal anyway, just have moose meat. But yeah, my season did not start off great. And then while I was in Saskatchewan, I told my husband, I'm like, you better shoot that buck in the backyard because when I always say backyard, we have 200 acres here beside of our house. And in West Virginia, we don't have good genetics. So we bought this property in 2018. We haven't shot anything off of it yet. We're just like managing and letting them grow. He shot this dandy buck drop tine, like it was in the 140s, and that's really good for West Virginia. And so was super pumped for him to do that. Then we went to Kansas and I got old bruiser out there in Kansas. Then we went to Ohio and we had a film guy with us because we were filming for Buckmasters right now. And there was a buck that I've been chasing. His name's Pretty Boy. And I named him last year. I asked all the neighbors, can you please let Pretty Boy go? Like, we're going to give him another year. And they all agreed. Like, everybody was on the same page. We all have a group text with all the landowners. Like, everybody likes to manage big bucks out there. And nobody shot him last year. This year, I said, hey, can you guys let Pretty Boy go just one more year? Absolutely not. Everybody wanted this buck. I'm like, Gah. So Josh and I had seen it the first day we were out there. Like he came into me, but he was facing, I couldn't get a shot. And then Josh couldn't get a shot on him. So, um, we all come out for lunch and all the neighbors come and hang out like in camp with us. And the neighbor had him daylighted in his food plot. And I looked at Josh and I was like, all hands on deck. I was like, that buck walks in front of me, shoot him. So he did. He shot my target buck. And so he's had a stellar year.
And so that was his second buck, or this is the buck
That
that
was
he.
his second buck this year. So he
Oh,
got one in
wow.
West Virginia, got one in Ohio. I got one in Kansas and he didn't. So he's still one ahead of me. Not that they were competitive like that, but I very blessed to have a lot of meat in the freezer. So I mean, you're not going to kill something on every hunt or it would just be called killing
Right.
instead of hunting. So it's just about the camaraderie. Like in Kansas, we hunt with some really good friends and they have little kids and it's just so fun going out there and it's just every year like what are we going to do? What are we going to plan? Where are we going to go? And we love to have people here too. We're avid bear hunters. We raise bear hounds. We have about 14 dogs now. I made him get rid. We had like 24. I was like, enough. Enough of the bear dog. Like we're over the limit. So I think we're down to 14 now, but my husband's been running hounds since he could walk. And so it's just a West Virginia thing. Everybody has a dog box on the back of their truck. So it's just a huge group camaraderie kind of sport you can have, infants to elders, and everybody plays a role. And so it's really all about the hounds. You know, those are like our kids. They want, oh, take me hunting, take me hunting, take me hunting. And so we run the bear, they run up a tree, and we let the kids or the elders shoot. First timers, you know, Josh and I, we don't consider ourselves bear hunters, we're houndsmen. So that's another fun thing we do. So that's all. We have a youth season in September and then a week in October, and then most of all December we bear hunt. So that's
Yeah,
fun.
and
Always.
that's pretty common with houndsmen that they enjoy the hunt, and whether it's a bear dog, a lion dog, or bird dogs, like most dog handlers want to watch their dogs work and see them grow and learn, and have they want to see their dogs have success. So that's pretty cool. When I wanted to back up to your moose hunt, when you are face to face squared off with a bull moose, what's going through your head?
Um, the size of them are ginormous. Like I've seen a moose once before, and I was whitetail hunting up in Alberta, and I was coming out of the woods on a four-wheeler when my guide had picked me up, and it was dark, and all I could see was legs in the spot in the headlights. And I said, "Oh my gosh, that's the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life." And he goes, "That's a moose." And it was a baby moose, and it was huge. And just like we had set up on these moose, and we were on the edge of the field. Like this was the night before. I hadn't really technically started hunting. I just got off the plane. He's like, "You got your camo ready?" He's like, "Let's go." And I'm like, "All right." And so I'm putting it on into the truck, and we went for just like a mini hunt the night before. And we were on the edge of this field, right on the edge of the trees. And these moose, you could hear them coming through the timber at you. And that was scary because they're so huge, and they're slow, but they're fast, if that makes sense. Like they could like run you over in like no time at all, but also like I feel like they're a very slow moving animal, but
Right, they
I
kind
don't
of
know.
lumber around, but their legs
Yeah.
are so long that they can cover ground.
Yeah, for sure. And so we heard two behind us, and I don't know if they caught our scent, or maybe I like freaked out and ran behind the guide. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, are they gonna run us over?" Because you could hear them coming like charging through the trees. And so that was a little bit scary for me. But just running up on him and being 17 yards at full draw, I really didn't have any fear at that time. I was just like, turn, turn, turn so I can shoot. You know, I wanted a full broadside shot. And I took my time. And like I said, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do the exact same thing, but maybe just aim a little lower next time. I don't know. But I hope I do get another chance. That would be awesome. But yeah, it was totally different than any other animal I've shot, just because like, you know, their vitals are so much higher. It's just it's just incredible. I always said if I go to Africa, like I would want to go just to see the terrain because Africa is so beautiful, but I can imagine the animals being so different there as well. Just so much larger in capacity to what you're used to as a whitetail, you know. So it was cool. It was cool. It was a little different, but you know, it would have been awesome if I would have got it for
Yeah, an
sure.
adventure of a lifetime that only would have been topped if you had actually gotten to tag the moose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier when we were talking about the DSG gear, how we can have a whole system and choosing what to pack. Do you have any suggestions for the listeners on how to pack for like this week when I went to Kansas, I wasn't sure it was going to be I think in the 30s to 60s. So I brought like various gear and I ended up only needing not even base layers, just my brush pants and a long sleeve and the vest, you know. Do you have suggestions for what we would carry or pack if we're traveling?
Yeah, always. We have a wool base layer. It's very moisture wicking. It's very thin, but wool is very warm to begin with. So if it's like 30 or below, I would wear my wool base layer, and then we have another base layer. They're black and green, and they go over top. They're a little bit softer, but they're still they're not like fleecy bulky. They're thinner. So I would wear those two base layers because you can always shed later when it gets up to 60. A lot of girls will wear base layers under their Bexley. The Bexley is the very lightest set that we have. And it's great for like Florida, Georgia, Texas, anywhere that it's like 70 degrees or warmer. The Bexley is perfect for that. Even like our field pants with our thinner shirts, they have like venting on the side. If it's really, really warm out and you're just like, oh, I need something light and airy, we have several options for that. But if it is colder, wearing your base layer under that light and airy is very comfortable. I'll do spot and stock in something like that all the time, because it's just moisture wicking, but it's still, you're still covered in camo, so you feel concealed, but you can move very easy because it's just like a lighter set. Then when it's colder, then I would wear the Brianna over that, or the Ella, or the Ava, or something heavier that I can shed off later. But when I shed that off, I still have camo underneath. And if I need to shed a base layer, you know. But that's what I do, is like the wool base layers against my skin because they're very moisture wicking. And then the other base layer, if I need it, then the lightest set that we have, and then a heavier set over that. So when it gets up to 60 and you're like, ugh, then you just shed the heavy and you still have camo underneath.
Yep, absolutely. Great tips. Great tips. I have one other question for you. I will try not to keep you too much longer. But you had mentioned something earlier that led me to believe that you've got a faith, you're a Christian. And with that, how do you feel like your beliefs influence your view of conservation of wildlife and fish?
I feel like people have been hunting since the beginning of time. I mean, God put these animals on this earth for us. I think that over time, with even just in the last 100 years, how things have changed, and people are like in the city and they have iPhones and they have this and they're going to the store. The convenience of things has really changed your mindset. So people, when they're like, "Oh, you shot that poor little animal," well, you don't understand. If we're not shooting these poor little animals, then these animals are going to take over and they're going to be diseased, and there's going to be too many of them. You're going to be hitting a deer 5 times a year instead of once every 5 years on the road. You know, like we're managing these animals in the way that God intended us to. And, you know, my mom passed away from cancer last year, and she said, and my dad, I told you, is an avid hunter, but she never really liked wild game. And she said to me, you know, and I would always try to trick her. Like when she would come to my house, she'd be like, is this deer meat or beef? Like she would get so mad if I would try to trick her, because I'm like, you're not going to be able to tell. It's in lasagna. You are not going to know it's deer meat. And she said, you know, I really have to commend you for eating healthier organic food all the time. And, you know, like when Josh and we go out and kill a turkey, it doesn't even make the freezer. It is right on the grill, and we're making poppers, and or I'm slow, you know, I've got it on the grill just low and slow, and just sharing it with everybody. And bear meat, we can bear meat. It's just like beef melts in your mouth, you know, like it's just, for me alone, like when I go to the store and I look at the stuff on the shelf, I'm like, ugh, like I don't know what's in that, and I don't know what they put in it, and I don't know what I'm putting in my body. But as like, I'm just like, God wanted us to live so simply, and now things are just so advanced and complicated, but people look at us like we're doing it in the wrong. And I'm like, no, you're doing it in the wrong. Like you know, it's just hard to look at in that way. Like, yeah, it's convenient for you to go to the store and get whatever you need. But for me, when I'm even in a tree stand, I mean, my soul just purifies itself. Like my mind goes clear and I can breathe, and I just have this like silence and this peace come over me. And I'm like, God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for the air that I'm breathing right now. Thank you for these hills and these trees and just everything and all this terrain. Like, and you really focus on like, this is what God created, and he created this for us, and so like people don't even get out there and enjoy it. They're like sitting on their couch watching a movie when you could be taking a walk in the woods, or it's just, I guess it's all in how you're raised and the way you live, and your mindset, and like everybody's different, and I'm not saying that what somebody else does is wrong compared to what I do. This is what I love. I mean, it makes me feel closer to God. It makes me feel complete. It's like a cleansing situation for me when I'm like out fly fishing or I'm out sitting in a tree. It's just it's just I'm like, why doesn't everybody do this? It's just I don't know. But I do like to give my testimony on it and being a hunter, and that's why I have social media. It's because and I do show a lot of things that I make and the recipes sometimes that I do. And people are like, oh, how'd you do that? What'd you put in that? And I get a lot of questions, and girls are always asking, what kind of boots do you wear? And what kind of bow do you use? And what kind of broadheads are you using? And so, um, I like to be a mentor in that way too, but also just, as a Christian, being living a Christian life, and being also a good influence in that way as well. So I always say that with my sponsorships, because I run the sponsorships for DSG. I like to find a good Christian girl because I don't have to worry about profanity or alcohol abuse, or like, doing anything sexual or taking sexual pictures. And you find a lot of that on social media. And my team is just so well put together, and they're so educational. Like I have girls that have like their own cooking shows and have their own wild game cookbooks, and I have girls that do trapping, and I have avid girls that like teach how to use handguns, and I try to get girls that know a little bit about all different things. So when people come to our page, they're learning about different things, not just bow hunting or not just gun hunting or not just deer hunting, but some girls go to Africa and Turkey and bear and deer and moose and things. There's girls that hunt things that I've never even hunted before. So I like that we can all educate each other on different aspects of the outdoor life.
Yeah, and on the website, there's a blog where the girls are sharing articles and stuff like that. So if somebody wanted to learn more, they could find information over there.
Yeah, like we got a new website, and the girl that made it's like, you're never gonna believe this, but like our blogs are blowing up. I'm like, really? Like I never thought anybody clicked on that stuff. She's like, it's what they click on the most. So we really started pushing blogs lately. A lot of the girls on the team are writing blogs, and we have another girl, her name is Sam, and she writes a ton of blogs for us, and she's kind of um like our Facebook gal who does all the sponsored ads and things like that behind the scenes. And man, she's great. She's so great at writing blogs, and it's really popular. And girls, they're asking questions and they want to know, and they're learning, and that's what we're here for. We're not just here to sell gear. We want to promote the outdoors and why we do it, and educate as well. So it's been really great with the blogs.
For sure. I think that's wonderful. And we could talk to you for hours and ask you all kinds of questions, like you mentioned, like what broadheads are you using? What shafts did you use? What's your bow setup? Like all this stuff. And so we don't have quite that much time to be talking about all of that stuff. But for the listeners, I will include links in the show notes where you can find DSG. And Rachelle, where can we find you?
At Rachelle Hedrick, RachelleHedrick. Yeah, my name. Got real creative with that one.
Well, you're as
Yeah,
creative as I am because I'm like Mia Anstine on everything. They're like, "What's your handle?" I'm like Mia Anstine. What about over here, Mia Anstine? And what's Mac Outdoors? It's Mia Anstine and Company.
yeah, there you go.
So, yeah, sometimes that's just the way that it goes. And I'm really happy that you shared your connection to hunting and your faith. And it's something I had to ask you what went through your mind when you were face to face with a bull moose, because I once was 10 feet away from a bull elk that was, well, I've been face to face several times, but I had time with my bow and I'm like trying to hide behind my bow and pretend I'm invisible. But all I could do is say the Lord's Prayer. And I was like, well, if he moves this way, I can shoot this way. If he moves that way, and then I'd say the Lord's Prayer again. If I die right now, what a way to go.
I know, right?
So, but I want to thank you for coming on the show, and I hope I get to see you somewhere along the way. I'm surprised that I haven't met you already, since I know a lot of your pro staff or whatever you call them, your ladies. I know several of them, and so hopefully I'll bump into you. I'm headed to SHOT Show in January. I'll be at SCI also in January, so maybe I can meet you at one of those or one of the other shows.
Yeah, my girlfriend asked me to go to SHOT, and I told my husband I want to go to SCI. So we may be at one or the other, maybe both. Who knows?
It's tough. Hopefully this will be the last year. I'm praying that it's not going to be overlapped again, because since
It
SHOT Show is like
won't.
my work and I get paid, I make money at that. But SCI, I'm a volunteer and I'm on the board of directors and all this stuff. I'm like, which how do I split the
Right.
time?
We used to go to SCI. It was like in Vegas and then Reno,
Mhm.
Vegas, Reno. We used to go all the time, and it's probably been maybe 8 years since we've been. And I told him, I said, it's in Nashville. Let's just drive down and go. Like, I just like the taxidermy alone is worth going to that show. It's just incredible. I love it so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. Well, if you end up going to one, hopefully we can meet up and say hello in
We'll hook up.
person.
Good.
Thank you
Good.
for joining me on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. That was fun.